Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paper.
I decided to watch as many movies on the IMDb Bottom 100 as possible. A list of the 100 lowest rated movies on IMDb. The last one I talked about in this series was the live-action Flintstones movies. The director of both of them directed Beethoven. The director of the first Teen Wolf movie would go on to direct Beethoven 2. This just in, horrific news. We're receiving word that the director of Beethoven's Third had nothing to do with any of these movies. Anyway, today we're talking about number 89, 2012's Piranha 3D, which is a sequel to 2010's Piranha 3D, which is a loose remake of 1978's Piranha. Another step up from what I usually watch for this series. After watching this, I honestly couldn't tell whether or not I even disliked it. I decided I probably did, but that still indicates a major uptick in my enjoyment of these movies. I think I might have maybe had that with the Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas, but this time that feeling was much stronger. At the very least, this is the most entertaining movie I've seen so far on this list. Anyway, let's go back to the beginning. The original Piranha was a B-movie from director Joe Dante and producer Roger Corman that was trying to get in on the success of Jaws. Spielberg himself called it the best Jaws ripoff. I have never seen it. I was seriously considering seeing it, particularly while writing this paragraph just now, but screw it, we're just sticking with these versions. It spawned a sequel and 2 remakes. One of them went straight to Showtime Channel in 1995, and the other one got a wide release in 2010, when 3D was making a comeback, briefly. Avatar had just come out, and the first trailer for this had debuted right before it.
The magic of 3D has taken audiences from the vastness of nature to the ocean's depths. But this spring, it will take you to a place unlike any other.
Anyway, it made enough money to allow for a sequel to be greenlit. This one was Piranha 3D with 2 Ds, because it's part 2, and for other reasons. So, I have watched the original, but it was a couple years ago, and it's not streaming anywhere I can see it, so my thoughts on it will be purely from memory, and I remember enjoying it for what it is. As you may have guessed, especially from the sequel's title, this is not high art, and I don't think anybody's gonna call me a snob for saying that. Directed by Alexander Aja, director of the Hills Have Eyes remake, and oh yeah, written by the director of the Hungover games. A guy who's written just enough decent things for him to at least know better than to do a movie that copies from the Friedberg and Salter catalog like this. He even wrote a decent movie that is self-aware enough to be considered a sort of parody. This movie exists to be as trashy and fun as possible. It's a movie about a prehistoric species of piranha that comes back to ruin a spring break party. It's full of people getting eaten in gory detail and of course gratuitous female nudity. More than most movies that strive to the same thing. In a lot of them I've seen, it's a lot of blood and maybe the occasional nude scene. Not here. This is a spring break and clothes are for suckers. And when it's not naked girls, it's gratuitous shots of girls in bikinis. It wears its sleaziness on its sleeve, but it's handled with a good dosage of humor and self-awareness. Besides, what's wrong with a few naked oh my god. What's also notable is its 3D. After all, it was apparently so important that they put it in the title. It was converted to 3D in post, but it was done as more than an afterthought, and so this became the first post-conversion effect to be praised by critics. I would not know about this considering the fact that I watched this on Netflix in 2D, but you can tell that there were clearly scenes that were shot for 3D. Yes, things do come out of the screen in this movie, but these cheap gimmicks only add to the campy tone. Yes, it's gimmicky, but that's kind of the point. Besides, I like gimmicky 3D, it's always fun. And if I'm paying extra to see 3D, you better make me notice it. Anyway, it's a good B movie. It has a few good laughs and a few gruesome kills. It's just self-aware enough for it to be charming. It's not essential viewing and definitely not for everyone, but it is entertaining.
I told you not even to say that word.
But the piranhas.
What about the piranhas?
They're eating the guests, sir.
They're here, and they're hungry. Piranha.
following movie is rated R.
When you go to the Metacritic page for the first movie, the most positive review there says that it should be retitled Piranha 3D, Double D, and C. The filmmakers apparently took that to heart. Okay, the writers wanted to make a sequel, but the Weinstein brothers hired somebody else because their script was too expensive and they wanted something much cheaper. Something much cheaper than the original, so much for making sequels bigger, but they gave those writers a co-producer credit despite the fact that they had nothing to do with it. Directing duties went to He Who Must Not Be Named to spare him the embarrassment. And as the release date approached, they decided to unknowingly prep for the pandemic almost 8 years in advance. By which I mean it was pulled from wide release and onto video on demand services at the same time as what was, at least in America, a very limited release. And I watched it on, what else, Tubi. Except it wasn't in 3D. And it was under the title Piranha DD. And that's not clever at all. Honestly, with the overall tone of the movie, they could have gotten away with just calling it 2DD. So, what's it about? The movie starts with a newscast showing the abandoned scene of the first movie about a year later. It closes with the newscaster saying that this might happen again. Coincidentally, both times this happened, it was to a bunch of hot, young, horny people. Travel tip: if you want to avoid being eaten by piranhas, hang around ugly people. The original ended with a cliffhanger involving even bigger fish. That cliffhanger is completely abandoned in favor of the same old regular-sized prehistoric piranhas. This time it's the grand opening of a water park. Except it's a sexy water park, where all the lifeguards are strippers, and it has an adult section full of naked strippers. He isn't the only thing you need to worry about in these pools. And yet somehow we see there are families with children there. Basically they decided to make a family place marketed to horny adults. I'm sure that'll take off. And the genius behind this is Todd from The Office, who does this against the wishes of his stepdaughter, the main character. And by the end, he basically becomes the mayor from Jaws because, big surprise, the piranhas are coming. See, they're in the underground river that he's using to pump water into the pools, and he doesn't care enough to do anything about it. Once again, I initially didn't know whether or not I liked it, and my feelings are a little more mixed this time. Maybe it would be a little more negative if the first one was fresh in my mind, but there are a few good moments in here. Like the return of the deputy from the first movie. I guess the reveal that he now has guns for legs is kind of a ripoff of Planet Terror, but it still made me laugh since I wasn't expecting it. And even before that, the intentionally overdramatic tone that his new fear of the water is given is among the funniest parts of this movie. This is far more comedy than horror, more so than the original. It's a straight-up comedy involving gun legs and David Hasselhoff playing himself. The only problem is that it might be a little too ridiculous. There's basically no horror anymore aside from the shock value of certain scenes, which aren't even as shocking as they could be since they're so ridiculous. It exists in a space that doesn't take itself seriously enough to be good horror comedy, but too seriously to be an outright parody in the vein of Airplane or Scary Movie or whatever. Probably one of the more memorable scenes involves a woman who is about to have sex with a man, but then complains that she feels weird, and then a piranha comes out of her special area and bites the man's special area. It left me pretty confused. I mean, what the hell happened? So I looked up the plot synopsis on Wikipedia, and it turned out that it swam in there during a skinny dipping scene. Thank God they didn't use the bigger fish, then the scene would be unrealistic. So the guy got cock-blocked by a fish, but I guess the fact that he was able to fit in there might indicate that the sex might not have been that good. I'd say he has blue balls now, but they're really more red. Okay, but seriously, this is really just a little too stupid to really be funny. And the fact that I needed to look up what happened didn't help either. I don't know if I'm just stupid or the portrayal of the entrance wasn't clear enough. But if it's the latter, the audience shouldn't have to be explained this kind of thing. Although I'll admit the part where she explained what happened made me chuckle. Oh, and also the manager of the park gets decapitated by one of these streamer thingies or whatever it's called. This movie isn't even trying anymore. Also, I guess one big surprise is the fate of a character who we've seen at least twice having sex with a pool drain. You might think that someone like that would be the first to go, but not only does he survive this movie, but in the end he's the one who saves the day. The worst he gets is that a piranha bites him in the ass while he's in the act. So what if he's a pervert who should probably be arrested? Other people here deserve to die more because they put on a swimsuit. Granted, there are worse people who do die, but the point still stands. This movie is only an hour and 22 minutes long, but once the credits started rolling, I saw that it still had about 12 minutes left. The rest of the movie is just credits, but occasionally interrupted by bloopers and some weird scene involving David Hasselhoff as the star of a fictional show called Fish Hunter or something like that. So yeah, they couldn't even make the movie long enough without adding all that stuff. Anyway, everything wrong and right with this movie could be summed up with the line, "Something came out of my vagina and bit his penis." It's occasionally funny and often entertaining, but still very stupid. It has more of a sci-fi movie feel than the original. It's not completely terrible, but it's still not good either. Still definitely the best one in the series so far, and funnier than most recent full-on parodies. Oh, and there's also another cliffhanger ending showing that the piranhas have legs now and can walk on land. Too bad 3DD was a critical and box office disappointment, and we could have seen a third film for that idea to be completely ignored in.